The right window treatments change everything: your sleep, your privacy, the way every room looks and feels. At Blinds.com, we've spent 30 years making it surprisingly simple to get exactly what your home needs. We've covered over 25 million windows and have 50,000 five-star reviews to prove we deliver. Whether you DIY it or want a pro to handle everything from measure to install, we have you covered. Real design professionals, free samples, zero pressure. Right now, get up to 45% off with minimum purchase, plus get a free professional measure at Blinds.com. Rules and restrictions apply.
Sunday morning. Well, let's get an update from Dr. Peter Michalos. We all want to live longer and we all want to live healthier. Well, Dr. Peter, what's going on there this morning?
Well, today, John, we're going to talk about a topic that is affecting people globally, and it has been affecting people for many, many years, and that's viruses and the spread of viruses. And one of the reasons that we're seeing the spread of viruses around the world is because of population mobility and global trade and cargo ships and planes. And we're seeing increased number of these various viral cases. One is called dengue fever, another one's called chikungunya, Zika, and there's a mosquito called the Aedes mosquito. And it's killed basically millions of people, just like when they were doing the Panama Canal. A lot of people don't realize that most of the people ended up dying from mosquito-borne diseases like malaria. But a fascinating story is one of the most aggressive mosquitoes is called the Asian tiger mosquito. And it's a fascinating story at how it ended up in the United States and Europe. The Asian tiger mosquitoes were transported in used tigers from Asia down to Texas. And what happens is that the larva lives inside the water that accumulates in these used tires, and it dries up. And then once it gets moisture again and it goes to a moist environment, it released all these Asian tiger mosquitoes, and it created outbreaks down in Texas and places like Georgia. And then it's interesting that some of those used tires that were sent from Georgia, where there are no large numbers of mosquitoes, they were shipped to Italy, and then an outbreak happened in Croatia, Spain, southern France, and Italy. So that's a fascinating story about the mobility of some of these diseases. But right now, the one that's in the news a lot that concerns us is the Ebola virus. And again, these are all RNA viruses. And what happens is that in the Democratic Republic of Congo, they have this new strain of Ebola called the Bundibugyo strain. And it's been around since 2007. There's 220 deaths so far there, and there's over 2,000 cases. And in Uganda, they also had 7 cases, including 2 healthcare workers. Thank God we don't have any cases in the USA, but that's why the CDC now, any flights coming in from the Democratic Republic of Congo, South Sudan, or Uganda, they have to actually fly through Washington, through the Dulles Airport, because they have to be screened by the CDC. And the good news is Ebola is not airborne. It happens with direct contact with blood, saliva, and bodily fluids. But the other good news is that the great company of George Yancopoulos and Roy Vagelos, Regeneron, made IV antibodies to fight Ebola. And last year they did donate them to the Democratic Republic of Congo. And whatever new strains there are, they have the ability to make new IV antibodies. So we need to push for more IV antibodies and also more RNA antivirals like they have in some other countries that we don't have here yet, like Avigan, Favipiravir, that block RNA viruses, just like they blocked during COVID. We didn't have them here in the United States, but other countries did have them, and that was very helpful. So, a lot of people just keep pushing vaccines, which are very important, of course, for many diseases. But when it comes to these RNA viruses, the variants occur and they keep changing. And as you and I talked about, these viruses have intelligence. They have viral intelligence. When they see an infected cell, they actually know to bypass it and they move on to another cell. So we need to be as healthy as possible. And as we've talked about, keeping our immune system maximized, keeping our vitamin D levels between 50 and 75. Those people, for example, didn't end up in the ICU as much with COVID. Now we're learning how important it is to try to stay healthy, and if you are feeling sick or not well, they have these tests now where you can have flu A, flu B, and COVID all in one test when you travel. I always travel with one of those. If you have flu, you have access to Tamiflu, osteovalvir, which was great, and there are antivirals like molnupiravir and Paxlovid for COVID, and hopefully they'll start allowing some of these other RNA blocking pills for all these other different viruses that seem to be on the rise. So in the summer around your house, avoid pools of water, especially with small children. There are things that you can put on the skin on babies, for example, with eucalyptus and other natural substances so that the mosquitoes don't come around, because mosquitoes and tick-borne illnesses are a real thing, and we have to try to avoid them, and always check, especially children, to make sure they don't have any ticks on them, and try to keep them away from areas where you see mosquitoes. And those are some of the health tips for this week. To keep listening to the WABC and the Cats Roundtable for more health tips on living long and prosper, and wear your sunscreen, hats with a brim, and protect your eyes from the sun. And skin cancer is obviously higher in the summer, so we need to protect ourselves from that too.
Well, Dr. Peter, let me tell you something. We're coming into the summer, and you always worry about, especially if you go out in the woods or if you go out in the country, and you always worry about ticks, and you always worry about mosquitoes. And I guess, by the way, the latest thing we worry about is every time I eat strawberries, I sneeze. So I'm stopping to eat strawberries. Is it happening to any other people?
Well, some people do react to strawberries, and we do develop allergies sometimes later in life. So, our bodies are sometimes our best doctor. If you're reacting, you need to avoid it. And, certain things that contain strawberries, we have to avoid it. But also sometimes it could be the pesticides that they spray onto these things. And sometimes they put some of these wax coatings to prolong the life of certain vegetables. That's why sometimes organic fruits don't look as appealing, but one of the reasons is because they're not sealed in with these other chemicals and artificial things. I tend to try to eat things without the skin, and I really don't eat strawberries. I think blueberries and kiwis are probably one of the healthier choices, and nothing like some good watermelon in the summer.
Thank you so much, and we'll catch up again real soon.
Thanks for always getting the truth out on the Cats Roundtable.